Heaton Road, Withington, 11th of May. Dear Miss Jones, may I call you Clementina? Firstly, may I say how nice it was to meet you in the park yesterday. Sorry I was a bit shy and reluctant to stray too far from Colin's legs, but believe it or not, you're the first dog outside of my immediate family that I've met up with. And with not having seen any of them for ages, I was starting to wonder if I'd ever enjoy canine company again. And you being a 12-week-old border terrier pup the same as me made our meeting especially good. As I told you yesterday, what with my sleeping in a cage and only exercising in the back garden with its high walls and fences, I'd started to believe that I was in a prison down here in Manchester, albeit an open one, serving time for some unknown crime I'd committed. Well, maybe not exactly unknown, to be fair. I suspected it may have had something to do with Colin's socks. You see, when I moved in with Colin and Monica a few weeks ago, one of the first occasions when the old man praised me was when I turned up in the living room with a dusty old sock in my mouth. "Good grief!" exclaimed Colin. "Where's you found that? Oh, what a good dog you are, Stanley." It seems he'd lost that particular sock with its distinctive blue toe and heel months ago, and hey, I'd found it, and he had the pair again. "Never mind about border terrier. Proper bloodhound you are, lad," he said, obviously chuffed. In truth, it hadn't been hard to sniff out the old sock that had been gathering dust just under their bed. I'd had a bit of a struggle to claw it out, but once I'd got it in my mouth, I triumphantly carried it downstairs like a shot pheasant. I didn't think it was such a big deal, though. But I quickly noticed Colin's enthusiasm about the whole matter. "Saved me £2.50 finding that sock, the dog has," I heard him tell Monica as he patted and stroked me, and I determined to repeat my obvious success whenever opportunity knocked, as it did, fortuitously, an hour or so later. I was back out on patrol and checking their bedroom when I spotted a couple of his socks nestling quietly on a stool. Without a second thought, I grabbed one in my mouth and, with my tail frantically wagging like a flag in a gale, ran down to Colin in anticipation of the praise that was surely to come. Well, you can imagine my surprise when, instead of the expected "Good boy, Stanley," I got a stern "Stanley, drop that," as Colin ran towards me, arms outstretched and grabbing at the cotton sock. Now, I remembered at that point that I'd played this game a few times before, whereby I'd be chewing a ball, and Colin would come over to me and say in a rather silly voice, "Give me that ball, Stanley, give me that ball." Then I'd play along with him by running out into the garden, and he'd laugh and chuckle as he chased after me to try and get the ball, and we'd have 5 minutes of fun frolicking around on the lawn. So I naturally translated, "Give me that sock," in similar vein, and so out into the garden I bounced, and out into the garden he duly followed, shouting and waving his arms as he went. Well, by the time the game was over, and he'd managed to retrieve his sock, it was, I've got to admit, rather the worse for the experience, and would more accurately be described as an X-sock, to be honest. Apparently, socks that cannot accommodate toes because they have large holes where said toes should be fail to fulfil any real purpose, and a single sock on its own is about as much use as a cat in a fox hunt. So Colin was now going to have to shell out £2.50 to replace them, and indeed, by the time a fortnight was up, the bill was more like £17.50. But in my defence, I have to say that he's proved to be a very slow learner when it comes to securing his assets, and I won't even begin to tell you about the number of his slippers I've disembowelled. Anyway, with my record of offences against assorted items of footwear, you can imagine my delight yesterday when I was apparently let out on parole,